Coming up next on Headline Humboldt, faculty from Poly Humboldt joined fellow members of the California Faculty Association this week in a one-day protest demanding better pay and benefits. Also, longtime political activist and registered lobbyist Stephen Bassett joins us to talk about what appears to be the evisceration of legislation meant to disclose governmental secrets regarding UFOs. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. Over the past 6 years, I and many others have gotten clued into the presence in our skies of a phenomenon that has long evaded rational analysis and substantiation. As the U.S. government has now admitted, for decades, people and technology have been encountering an unexplained presence in our skies that appears to demonstrate high technology and intelligent control. Debate rages as to what this technology represents and how much information should be disclosed, but confirmation has been offered, grudgingly, as to its presence in our skies. Due to the efforts of our guest today, lobbyist and activist Stephen Bassett, as well as former governmental insiders like Lou Elizondo and David Grush, we've come a long way in acknowledging this phenomenon, and efforts are currently underway to allow for a more fulsome government disclosure. Most notably, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer authored the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023, an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act. Modeled on similar legislation having to do with records surrounding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, this bill would have mandated a process of disclosure, would have given the federal government the power of eminent domain over recovered otherworldly technology, and would have established a task force to help the executive branch decide what should be publicly released regarding UFOs and when. This week, however, at the behest of several congressmen with strong links to the aerospace industry, the legislation was defanged and seems to have lost much of what made it so revolutionary. Is the battle for disclosure therefore lost? What does it mean that some of the most aggressive plans for disclosure have now gone down in a process that reeks of corporate manipulation? Activist and lobbyist Stephen Bassett will help us understand what's happening and what we can do to force the issue. But first, the news. The man shot and killed by Eureka police last week after an attempted traffic stop and resulting altercation has now been identified. On Sunday, November 26th at around 9:30 a.m., a man was shot and killed by Eureka police after officers attempted to stop a vehicle for expired registration near 2nd and M Streets. While officers attempted to secure the area, the 31-year-old man, who was the right front passenger inside the vehicle, fled the scene and was later found near the rear of the Humboldt County Library. Quote, while the officer who conducted the traffic stop remained with the vehicle and its two occupants, nearby officers responded to check the vicinity for the male who fled, said an EPD press release. Quote, an officer located the male as he was attempting to scale a fence to the north side of the Clara Mayberry Park, which was closed, utilizing verbal commands. The officer attempted to get the man to stop. He refused to comply and a physical altercation ensued. During that fight or altercation, the man produced a gun and chambered a live round, according to police. The press release went on to say that the male then produced a pistol which he held in his right hand. During the altercation, he was able to manipulate the firearm slide, chambering a live round. As a result, officers fired their weapons. The suspect was wounded, and though life-saving efforts were undertaken, he died at the scene. It is unknown if the suspect managed to fire his weapon, but he has now been identified as Matthew Robert Williams of Cutton. He was found to be in possession of 42 grams of fentanyl, a large amount of cash, and had several outstanding felony warrants for his arrest. All body-worn camera and audio footage will be released in accordance with state law, and the officers, as of late this afternoon, have also been identified as K-9 officers Jeremy Solom and Nick Jones. Members of the California Faculty Association, representing the staff and faculty of the California State University system, took to picket lines this week in a one-day protest meant to underline their concerns and assert their determination. A press release prior to the strike outlined its reasons. Quote, with the authority of 95% of our members who voted, we, the CFA's Board of Directors, unanimously voted to call a strike over CSU's management's failure to settle reopener contract negotiations fairly, it read. Quote, faculty in all ranges and ranks need better pay, better parental leave, workload support, and health and safety rights that align with our anti-racist and social justice values, unquote. Scores of protesters waved signs and chanted at San Francisco State University and 3 other campuses. Staff members from Poly Humboldt were on site and spoke to Headline Humboldt.
So this is about system working conditions for faculty and for lecturers, and this is about, our working conditions, our student learning conditions. I'm here because I'm a tenured faculty, and it's our responsibility to come and to show up and to represent and to let the Chancellor's office know that why we're here is because we want better conditions for faculty in terms of our pay, in terms of childcare, in terms of thinking about how we support those that are working within our system.
Joining us now via Zoom is Stephen Bassett, a lobbyist and a UAP activist from Paradigm Research Group, which he leads and helped found, I believe. Thanks for joining us, Stephen.
My pleasure.
So, your business, to a large degree, is UFOs. You're on the circuit talking about these issues, and you've been leading part of the fight to get to disclosure. Let's talk about how we've got to this point. What is UFO disclosure, and are we closer to it now than we've been, or are we further away?
Disclosure, as being used, is capital D. It's an event. It's the confirmation by the President of the United States of an extraterrestrial presence. Our government has known about this presence for a minimum of 76 years. It is embargoed it. I like to call it, I've called it a truth embargo. It's not a cover-up, it's a truth embargo. It's embargoed the confirmation of that, while, of course, the awareness of it has grown worldwide. On June the 5th, Major David Grush, retired, who was working for the UAP task force, came forward on News Nation and stated that firsthand witnesses had told him that they were working with non-human technology, crash vehicles, and were aware of non-human bodies that were obtained from those vehicles. This amounted to informal confirmation of the extraterrestrial presence right there. That created a very serious problem for the people that were writing and putting together the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, and I'm talking about the UAP section, right? The UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena, is now currently the phrase that is used legally. Yeah. Because he's informally just confirmed the ET presence. He's confirmed Roswell. As a result, 39 days later, and 12 days before David Grush restated what he had given to News Nation under oath before a House Oversight Committee subcommittee, Chuck Schumer made a bold move. He, along with Mike Rounds, indicated that they were putting a huge additional section into the bill, which had already had an initial section put in I think, July 14. And this section was a significant thing, in which it gets into a domain, the eminent domain of any non-human tech. Literally, any that non-human tech out there that David Grush was referring to, the United States government owns it, and we have the right to take it. And the language was going to include an opportunity for about 300 days to report from deep inside the government, anybody that has that, and any civilians, to report that to the U.S. government, at Arrow, which is the entity now that's manning this thing from DOD, and then they would decide what to do with it. Also, it indicated there was going to be a huge section called the Disclosure Control Program, which was essentially designed to provide a responsible way for everything the government has on this issue come forward through several review processes and end up in the National Archives. It was basically the legislation that would complete what we need to have disclosure from the U.S. president. It is the fourth piece of legislation. There's been 3 previous bills, each one twice as large as the other, and this one was the largest at around 73 pages. This was all being done, it has been done, and been putting together for years, not so the government could find out what that thing is that you're showing there. That's unidentified aerial phenomena. The government already knows there's an extraterrestrial presence, has had non-human extraterrestrial craft, studied them for decades. Part of national security matters. So everything that's going on now, the legislation, the creation of Arrow, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, all of this is to prepare for dealing with what happens the day after the President of the United States steps forward in the East Room and confirms the extraterrestrial presence. But Grush has informally done that, not only in front of News Nation, but also to the subcommittee under oath. Schumer's amendment, again, informally confirms the extraterrestrial presence. If we don't have non-human technology, you don't need to exercise eminent domain over it.
Well, that's one of the
And
interesting things. Just to drill down on that a little bit, I mean, we're talking about Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and this is language that he and his staff crafted that lays out all of this stuff. This is not fantasy or fiction like, Independence Day, the movie. This is a law that was written by the Senate Majority Leader that would have said any tech that is otherworldly in the possession of other or aerospace companies could be seized by the American government. And lo and behold, the group that comes out most in favor or most opposed to the UAP Disclosure Act, if I'm not wrong, is the aerospace companies. Is that true?
Yeah. This bill was major. The first three bills didn't rattle any cages, but this one did. He punched the defense contractors in the nose, and they basically stayed behind the scenes. They don't want to get out in front of this, but they had no choice. And so very quickly, surprisingly, two major pushbacks occurred against the bill. One of them was defense contractors who give millions and millions of dollars donated to members of Congress for their campaigns, leaning substantially to the Republicans, not the Democrats. All right. They have been sitting on that tech and developing that tech, waiting for the time when they could cash in and convert it into extraordinary new businesses and technologies and make billions. And suddenly, Chuck Schumer says, no, we own it. And so they then got in touch with intermediaries who got in touch with other intermediaries that eventually interfaced with those members of Congress that were in the reconciliation conference to say, look, no, we don't want this. But we weren't that concerned about that. We felt that Chuck Schumer probably put that in as a bargaining chip in order to keep the disclosure control program, as well as the 9-person appointed White House Review Board.
Yeah.
However, three more people jumped in. Mike Turner, the chairman of the House Intel Committee, Mike Rogers,
Mike Turner, right,
of the House Armed Services Committee, jumped in on behalf of the contractors, but also on behalf of those people inside our government who believe that the embargo of this truth, that we are not alone, and the technology we have gotten from crash vehicles must remain a national security secret indefinitely. They do not want disclosure. And so they pushed back, and they got joined by Mitch McConnell. And when Mitch McConnell stepped in, now it got really serious. So McConnell is leading on the senators in general in the House to don't support this. But he's also interfacing with Mike Johnson, Mike Rogers, and Mike Turner, I call the three Miketeers, to try to get their support, because the principal leverage there was going to be used in that conferee meeting was, if you don't take this out, it's not going to get passed. And we're talking about the NDAA bill. Yeah. Okay, this is a single bill.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, they won. They gutted the bill. They got rid of the eminent domain. They got rid of the disclosure control program, which included subpoena power, which they were absolutely frightened of. I mean, they just scared to death about that. And it got rid of the review panel. They gutted it. And so what's left is not particularly significant, but it is there. And we do have a fourth bill. Now, here's what's going to happen next. This is very important. The gutting of this bill does not in any way impede the Senate Intel Committee, chaired by Marco Rubio and Mark Warner, to call the hearings that there's several dozen witnesses ready to testify. People like Rush, or even better, 10, 15, 20 witnesses are prepared to go in front of the Senate Intel Committee as soon as possible, sit down, take an oath, and over a period of 5 days, maybe morning, afternoon sessions, tell things every bit as powerful as what Grush said and more. And those hearings will blow the truth embargo wide open. That's where this has always been headed. Once those hearings have been held, then the president, in a passive, nonpartisan way, will, after 76 years, be able to step out in the East Room and say to the American people that I've watched these hearings along with you. The testimony is compelling and profound. I've discussed it with my top officials, as well as the Department of Defense, and we have come to a consensus that, yes, we are not alone. We have extraterrestrial or non-human engagement. We have extraterrestrial or non-human technology, and I'm sure you want to know all about this. And we will start the process of telling you starting Monday morning, because this will probably happen on a Friday. Now, here's what happens after that. Once the president has confirmed the extraterrestrial presence, then they'll just reintroduce the bill as a standalone. And given the fact the world has just been told by the president and probably most other rest of the world leaders that we're not alone, we have an extraterrestrial presence, that bill will fly through the House and Senate like that, and they'll get all that infrastructure just a little late. Hopefully they won't wait too long, because once the president makes that announcement, I assure you, all hell breaks loose. And if they don't have everything in place to properly address the proper process of disclosure and all of the concerns that the media and the public have, it's going to be chaos, and that would be wrong. And so I'm saying that we're going to get disclosure, hopefully in January. That bill will be reintroduced and passed, and we will enter the post-disclosure world, and years will go on where we are getting information out of our deepest, most secret facilities, documents, and everything else, up through a very responsible process with interview, with review ability, with committee members of Congress and the review board having this exact highest clearance you can have to be able to look and see anything. There will be no project, no document that they cannot see. They will have full special access, and that will be part of this, and we will go forward in the post-disclosure world. So we haven't lost. We've just been a slight setback, but now the most important event in human history is now in the hands of three men. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, House Senate Intel Committee Chairman Mark Warner, and Ranking Member Marco Rubio. These are the people that have the absolute most authority and ability to call that hearing. The president can't call it, and nobody else can call it. Only them. And what is going to happen now is I've launched an activist project that is called Shiftstorm. It's already gone out through the internet. It's in the hands of thousands of people. And that is about sending 100,000 emails and 100,000 what we call tagged Twitter messages to each of these three offices. So that would be 200,000 messages to all three of these gentlemen into their offices. They are the heroes. They're not the enemy here. They're not the one that gutted the bill. Politely, respectfully, but sternly saying, we want those witnesses to testify before your committee in January. We want the disclosure hearings in the Senate Intel Committee that you've promised, and we want them in January. And we're thinking that 600,000 messages will get their attention. And that is called Shiftstorm. It's being based on my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, and out of my Twitter page at Steve Bassett.
So people can go there and see the templates or whatever that you'll have in terms of the messaging. Is that right?
No templates, no boilerplate. People make up their own messages. If you want to send 10, make sure all 10 are different. You can send the same message to each member. Just don't send the same message to the same member. Be respectful. All the protocols are going to be laid out. We're going to do this right. And we're going to help to make sure that we get those hearings in January after they return, right? And then I assure you, that leads to the president's confirmation, and that leads to the reintroduction of the UAP bill that was just gutted. And then the government and those contractors are going to have to deal with eminent domain, probably, and the review process, whether they like it or not. The truth embargo is basically a dead policy walking. It is over after 76 years. It's time for the world to learn they're not alone, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
So, I mean, but the question to my mind is that we were all relatively hopeful and even optimistic in some corners with the Disclosure Act. And then at the last minute, there seemed to be a rallying of folks, a lot of them high profile and very powerful people, like the Senate Minority Leader, who came out of the woodwork to oppose it. I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, obviously, there are people who are not interested in this information coming forward. And I think it's interesting to me that a lot of them cluck their tongues and call the whole topic ridiculous, but they spend their time making sure that the language that would ensure that everyone learns it's ridiculous, which is to go through the government files and say, here it is, you can see what we've been doing. If it was only ridiculous, why wouldn't they just share those files? But because
that's in the past. That's in the past. Look, the stigma of the issue is virtually completely gone. On my website, in the print media archive, paradigmresearchgroup.org, on my website, I have logged in 15,000 articles about this. 1,800 this year alone in professional media. Wow. 1,800 is the largest amount of articles published on this ever, right? And so I assure you, we're not going backwards. There was some pushback. Hey, there are opposition to the bill, but Schumer and Warner are two of the most powerful people in Congress, right?
Mhm.
So, and they're more powerful than Turner or Rogers.
Yeah.
Now, there's no question that Mitch McConnell is a powerful guy, but he's in the minority now, right? There's already been a hearing in the House Oversight Subcommittee. I talked to Tim Burchett. They're going to hold another one, and Burchett, Luna, and Mace are not giving up. So they have been pushing this thing from the House. We have plenty of action in the Senate, and so this is a temporary setback that I assure you, Turner and Rogers will regret. And I assure you that the defense contractors who have basically been outed here, the defense contractors are saying you cannot take our non-human technology.
Yeah.
They just confirmed that we're not alone. And so when the truth finally comes out, it's just going to make it a little more awkward then to describe what are your intentions, Lockheed Martin. Are you here to make billions of dollars off of technology that comes from other planets, or are you here to help the United States government serve the American people? Which is it? And they'll probably have some snappy answers for that, but I assure you those questions are coming.
It's interesting to me that Mark Warner seems like the dark horse there. I mean, in terms of Marco Rubio has come out and has said that we have things in our skies, things are being reported by people that are very high up in very secret parts of the government who are claiming very extraordinary things, and he's not made any bones about that fact. But Mark Warner has been quieter. It worries me that we may not know where he stands completely in terms of pushing this ball forward into the public.
Oh, we do. He's a little quieter because of the position that he holds. The initial bill, the first bill in 2020 that was signed, was authored by Marco Rubio. The second bill that was signed in 2021 was authored by Kirsten Gillibrand. The third bill that was signed in 2022 was authored by Mark Warner. I assure you, he's totally there, but he's trying to be careful. And so is Rubio, by the way. He stayed back because of who they are. The Senate Intel Committee is viewed as the most powerful committee in Congress by many, and also the most nonpartisan. They work together. There's no nonsense. And so they're handling this very respectfully. And I believe that they clearly were anticipating that or waiting for the bill to be signed before calling the hearing. It makes total sense. Yeah. That would be what you do. They might have done it earlier in the year, but events this year has pushed a lot of things forward. And so they decided, I think, let's wait until the bill's signed. Well, the bill's going to be signed. It's just not going to have as much in it. But remember, the stuff that was supposed to be in it was put in by Chuck Schumer, who was going to be the one helping to bring that hearing. And so I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing, and they know they can hold the hearing. They didn't need that full UAP Disclosure Act, but they can get it later. So this is what's unfolding, folks. This is politics extraordinaire. This is some of the most extraordinary political discussions in the history of our country. The issue is the most profound in history, issue in human history, and the disclosure event that our president will trigger soon will be the most profound event in our time. And so I'm pretty excited, and I hope people will start to get on board this and pay attention, because this is really a big deal. And just being alive while it happens is an extraordinary gift from the cosmos.
Yeah. One of the things that people talk about with the Schumer legislation, there seems to be a disconnect about whether Schumer would have done something like that with the advice and consent of the White House. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship between a Senate Majority Leader of one party and a president of the same party? Are they communicating about what bills get introduced?
They communicate, but we have three separate branches of government.
Yeah,
and the Congress is a separate branch. And while the president could lean on a committee chair to do something, he can't make them do it. My question, I guess, would be, would he have objected to Schumer's amendment if he was not in support of it? I don't know. No, publicly objected? No. He's been staying out of this. He is really staying out of this. He doesn't want to politicize it. Mm-hmm. And so he's staying out of this and let Congress basically bring the thing to him. What discussions have been having in the background, we don't know. If, in fact, President Biden is opposed to this, it hasn't come public. If it is learned that he is opposed to this, it will be catastrophic for him, Democratic Party, and his legacy. So let us hope that he is in no way opposing
So the other question that I think needs to be asked, and that a lot of people do ask, is that there has been 76 years of secrecy regarding this topic, and there have been sightings starting since the late 1940s, and they were all over the place, all over the country, causing a lot of alarm. And so this story was developed that it's all basically demented witnesses or people out of their gourd, that sort of thing. Is there a possibility, though, that what is to be disclosed is not something that's going to be productive for the public, that it may cause some sort of existential or ontological issues that could unsettle society? I mean, that's what a lot of people argue when they say that's why it's been maintained.
Sure, but we have a lot of information about the ET presence. We have had thousands of contactees, hundreds of thousands of contactees have submitted reports to researchers. We've been researching it for 70 years. We know a great deal about it. And I can say with confidence right now, the least of your concerns is ontological shock from the disclosure of the ET presence. What should concern you is the behavior of human beings on this planet right now, because we're out of control, worse than ever in many ways. All genocide, atrocities, risking nuclear war, that's what you need to be losing sleep over, not what you're going to learn after the president confirms the ET presence. I feel pretty sure about that. So sleep well, but keep an eye on the Ukraine, the Middle East, and Darfur and Taiwan, because that's where the danger lies, not up there in the sky.
A lot of political energy for this issue has been directed at contacting people's representatives saying, I want you to support this legislation. But it sounds like the issue has moved out of the House now, so people should direct their correspondences to, Senate. Like you said, the Senate chairman and ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And if people want to do that, they should go to your website. Can you give us that URL one more time?
ParadigmResearchGroup.org. I will have a big link up shortly with a big graphic that's coming. Or if you go to my Twitter, and by the way, please follow @Steve Bassett or Paradigm Research Group, just scroll down. You'll see the posting for the Shiftstorm, and it'll send you right to the mailer that went out. And you'll see everything right there now. But soon I'll have a link directly to it up on the main website.
Yeah. And anything you want to say to people before we let you go? We got about a minute left.
Ad Astra.
Ad Astra. I like that.
You know what it means, right? Sure
well, I saw the movie. I don't know if that...
To the stars.
To the stars.
It's a great movie, but it's a great phrase. To the stars, because that's where we're going, folks.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on with short notice and doing this. And we'll talk to you again soon.
My pleasure. All right.
Okay. Before we go, I want to encourage folks to come out this Saturday to a rummage sale being held across J Street from Eureka High School. The EHS Players Drama Group is trying to raise money for a trip later this year to New York City. My daughter Sophia is amongst this group, and they could really use the help. The address is 2024 J Street, and it'll be held from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. on this Saturday. Stay tuned. Stay informed.